Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 17 is here. The break weeks for Shonen Jump around Christmas are finally over. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the deep dive here. The chapter opens up with tsurugi actually talking about his father who disappeared, which I know some of that information was given to us in the first volume released by Gege. I believe that his father's name is Iori. And it says that his dad disappeared right after Yuka was born. And for a while, and for no particular reason, tsurugi was pretty obsessed with just trying to find out as much information as he could about his father, like what he was like. And I mean, I feel like that's very natural for a child, especially when your parent who has been present for you just disappears. But then it says that neither of his grandparents nor his mother seemed willing to talk about him at all. And there's just a lot of secrecy around prominent Gojo clan members. So he said that he was surprised to hear that his dad was serious and diligent, and said he took after Yuta, because we know that's exactly how Yuta's demeanor and his composure and the way he operated was. But that diligence might have been his very undoing. And he says that his father grieved how weak his generation of Jujutsu sorcerers was when it was compared to his parents' generation. And he just sank deeper into worry and anguish. And that's something that has been talked about multiple times about during this time of peace, that the overall skill and power level of the sorcerers has just completely dwindled, because there is no requisite threat for people to be that strong. And obviously his father was someone who was very concerned about that. It would seem for the greater good, but honestly, this whole situation around his dad is just very mysterious. And I think that's supposed to be, because then it says shortly before his disappearance, there was a report from a maid that had seen his father confronting someone, this hooded man who had a scar on his face. And she didn't know the context or anything, but she heard them talking a little bit, and that the man had said to his father, it says, "It doesn't matter." And we see Yuji Itadori standing there. He's got his hood up, just totally cloak and dagger, just been super edgelord, just hiding out in the shadows. And I think this is I think we are building up to something else involving Yuji, that this precedes even this whole alien situation. I still am of the belief that the humans and the aliens, I believe, will have to learn to work in harmony. I think that's kind of the whole thematic through line that's going on in Modulo between Yuka and tsurugi, between Cross and Maru, and then both of the siblings, and then the humans and the aliens. So it's just this repeated cycle of trying to find harmony and chaos. But then we have Yuji here, and we know that in chapter 7, we saw Mahito pop up randomly. Now, it could have just been him in that kind of path when souls pass on, and he's just like waiting for someone specifically, maybe Yuji, or maybe it has something to do with tsurugi's father, because for some reason Mahito said like, oh, it's not him. And he's obviously was talking about tsurugi here, and tsurugi is Iori's son. So I don't know if somehow the souls give off kind of a similar feel. I don't know, because it seems like Yuji he's still a little bit active, but it's like active in the shadows. So I think we're still going to see him. I think there may be a bomb that's going to get dropped on us at some point, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's great to see him again. And Tsurugi continues to think that, like, why did his father disappear specifically after Yuka was born, but not right after he was born? And he says that it seems to have something to do with whether or not Yuka and him had curse techniques. Obviously, Tsurugi came out, no curse technique. He had his heavenly restriction. And he said, he continues to say that he's not sure how he reached the conclusion, but Tsurugi was told that Dad felt his role was finished once Yuka was born. And obviously I'm thinking that has something to do with producing a child with the 10 Shadows technique. So maybe not only is the 10 Shadows obviously one of the most coveted techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen, and for good reason, but maybe whatever Iori was trying to do that Yuji was telling him it doesn't matter, maybe it has something specifically to do with the 10 Shadows. So not sure on that, just kind of where my brain starts going to. But Tsurugi continues on to say that if he had a curse technique, so if he wasn't born with heavenly restriction, would Yuka have just never been born? Was he just looking for a curse technique in general, or was it a specific one? And if Yuka didn't have a curse technique, would he also not have disappeared? Would they still have their father in their life? Or maybe would he continue to have more children until a curse technique popped up? So there's just a lot of mystery around his father, and we'll have to just wait and see where that goes. Because Tsurugi said that he thought he had to make sure Yuka never found out about any of that. But she's smart, so I think that it cuts off. But he's obviously thinking that, like, she's able to put the dots together as well around his father. But Tsurugi, being the big brother who loves her, he doesn't want Yuka to think that it was her fault that their father left. That was his choice, had nothing to do with them. But then we cut back to the fight between Tsurugi and Maru, and Tsurugi has caught himself from falling, and it's literally going sideways down a building, but he caught himself. And he just says that Maru's curse technique makes no sense, as usual. Maru comes flying in with a sword stab, and Tsurugi rolls out of the way, but then they both fall down, basically sideways, and land on the building. And Maru comes charging at Tsurugi, and Tsurugi prepares himself for a counterattack with his curse tool to unleash some flames in a strike. But then Maru actually flips the situation back up to the right side. So he's obviously flipping between chaos and harmony, harmony being back to where they're originally supposed to be, and their orientation is all the same. But then he can flip it back and forth, which would be exceptionally disorienting anyways. But then you have a proficient fighter and warrior in Maru also attacking you at the same time. So Tsurugi gets kind of plopped on the ground when he flipped, and Maru goes for an attack, but Tsurugi counters. But Maru actually catches Tsurugi's blade in between, in that gap that he has running inside his sword. And he's trying to basically snap Tsurugi's blade with it, which is a very cool aspect of this type of blade. So I'm really happy we got to see it. The combat, I think Yuji Iwasaka is doing a fantastic job of conveying the combat as well. And Tsurugi, to prevent the sword from breaking, he actually fully flips himself in air, and it ends up disarming both him and Maru. And as he's trying to regain his balance, Maru just comes in with a massive kick to his face and actually blows him out of the building. And then we see them floating upside down in the sky, or Tsurugi's upside down and Maru is up right side up. And he proceeds to, or maybe it's reversed. Tsurugi is right side. It's very confusing, actually. And I think that's the whole point. This is chaos. And Maru has Tsurugi just pinned in the air, and he's preparing himself for a massive strike right to Tsurugi's torso. And he says, I win. And Tsurugi's bleeding from his forehead, and he says, maybe, but if there's even a 1% chance I can save Yuka, I'm going all in. And Maru says, wouldn't have expected anything less. So giving him that warrior's honor and respect, and he proceeds to just give a nasty blow right to Tsurugi's chest and like torso area, and Tsurugi's face just like, he goes flying into the building. And then we get probably the coolest panel of Maru in the series, where he's levitating and he's got just this look on his face, and he's literally levitating like a bunch of cars all around him, and he proceeds to throw them or propel them to Tsurugi inside the building. We see the building kind of like blow up, but then we get a panel here of Maru looking just, he's not happy about it. He knows why he's fighting, and he knows why he has to give it his all, but he ultimately is friends with Tsurugi, and he doesn't want to be doing this right now. So he just looks like he's in a bit of anguish. But then we cut to Tsurugi, who's just basically unconscious. He seems like he's cooked. But then it continues to say that Yuka was born with something incredible. So I'm sure she'd be proud to have an equally incredible death. So referring to the 10 shadows. But he says, but I just can't accept that. Whether I'm in touch with her or not, just as long as I know she's out there somewhere living her life, that would be enough for me. That's all. And then we actually see the ring on his chest, so Yuta's ring, glowing. And he says, Grandpa. And then we have a voice come in and say, ew, how awful. You ended up looking like her instead. And it's Rika's mouth. So of course he's referring to Maki here, or she's referring to Maki. Rika despises Maki. She has ever since she was a vengeful cursed spirit at the very beginning in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. And so obviously Tsurugi resembling Maki here, Rika is not a fan of it. But she continues on saying, but I'll save you because Yuta asked me to. Now say I accept. And Tsurugi just asks, then can I win? And Rika here just says, what a foolish question. And then we just see a black panel with the words, I accept. And Maru's face switches to just, oh, what the heck is going on here? Because then we see just a massive well of cursed energy start rippling off of Tsurugi. And we see all this like energy around him. And Maru's like, cursed energy? It's definitely not Tsurugi's, because we know he doesn't have any. And he just says, who are you? And then we get an absolutely incredible panel of Tsurugi with basically Rika's head and her hair flowing. So it's like it like encased his head, and cursed energy is just swirling around him. And next panel we get is just punch coming in right to Maru's face. Boom, blows him back right into the building. And, you know, props to Maru here. This is like, Maru is legitimately very strong, because he was actually able in time to block the punch and minimize the damage that he took from that. So I just got to say props to Maru here, but Tsurugi looks so sick. And we actually see Tsurugi start talking here and says, thanks for the help, but don't just go saying whatever you want. And Rika's like, well, isn't somebody cocky? I'm going to go to Yuta in heaven and tell on you. And Tsurugi just says, would they even let you in heaven? And Rika just answers and says, oh, you make me so mad. So they're literally just bickering here, which is perfect, because Tsurugi also has more of the disposition of Maki. Not only looks-wise, he spent the most time with Grandma. So he obviously got some of his personality in the way he speaks and he operates from Maki. So it's awesome to see this dynamic because they have to work together, but they don't really particularly want to. So this is where the chapter ends. Absolutely crazy development here. So cool to see. I don't know how this exactly works. Is it because Rika's a separate entity, he still keeps his heavenly restriction physical prowess, plus basically her astronomical amount of cursed energy? Does he have access to any of the curse techniques that Yuta had stored up through copy? I don't know. I'd love to hear below what you guys, think regarding Rika Tsurugi here, and just the chapter in general. But I also, before ending it, just want to comment, because I totally forgot, the very beginning of this chapter, there's a color page of Maharaga and Dabura here, and it is absolutely gorgeous. They both look incredible, but like Maharaga has this golden hue to his whole being, and he just looks divine. I get it, he's the divine general, but this, I'm going to say character design because I know Maharaga is part of a technique, but he is basically kind of like a character. The design for Maharaga is potentially one of my absolute favorites across all shonen manga. So just want to throw that out there. I'd love to know if any of you feel the same way, but this is where I'm going to end the deep dive for chapter 17. Can't wait to continue on the journey with all of you, and I hope you have a great day or night wherever you're at, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.